I never thought I'd end up here, honestly. My name's Mike, and for years I thought I had the perfect life, married to Lisa, a sharp, gorgeous woman who always knew how to push my buttons but in a way that made me feel alive. We had 2 kids, decent jobs, a nice house in the suburbs. Everything was fine, or so I thought. Looking back, there were little signs that things weren't perfect. She'd get strangely defensive if I asked about her phone, or she'd be late for work sometimes, but she'd brush it off as work stress or random plans with friends. I bought it because I didn't want to face the possibility that she might be sneaking around, especially not with someone she trusted, our chiropractor, Dr. Jensen. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy. But she had been seeing him regularly, twice a week, sometimes more, always under the guise of getting her back fixed, after her stupid desk job gave her constant neck and back pain. She'd come home with that glow and I'd joke about it, asking if she'd had a good session, and she'd roll her eyes and call me paranoid. Still, something felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something, and despite my efforts to ignore it, the suspicion gnawed at me. One evening, I decided to do a little digging. I'd been noticing that her phone was locked more and more. She'd never been big on privacy, but lately, it was almost like she was hiding her screen from me. I'd seen her slip her phone into her purse whenever I walked into the room, and her messages seemed more guarded. So, I decided to crack her passcode. I know, stupid, invasive even. But I was desperate. I'd never gone full-on snooping before, but I was falling apart inside and I needed to know what was going on. That's when I found the security footage. I didn't mean to stumble onto it. I'd been curious about her schedule, maybe trying to catch her in a lie. I asked her about her appointments one day, and she snapped at me, said I was crazy and paranoid for even questioning her. She told me she was just trying to get her back fixed, that Jensen was a professional, that I should trust her. But I've always trusted her, and I just couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. So one night I decided to check the security camera footage from our home's smart system, something I'd never done before. I was stunned when I saw it. There on the footage was Lisa, not just leaving the chiropractor's office, but going in multiple times during hours she claimed she was working late. I watched her walk in alone, then meet Jensen halfway in the lobby. I saw her get into his car, a sleek black sedan, and stay there for what felt like forever. The most damning part, they weren't just talking about her back. No, this was something more. It was obvious they were screwing around, and from the way she looked, all confident and sneaky, I knew this had been going on for a while. My stomach dropped. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe it. Lisa, the woman I loved, was cheating on me with our own chiropractor. That bastard Jensen, who's been supposed to be helping her, was actually helping himself to my wife. The betrayal hit hard, and suddenly, everything I'd ever thought about my marriage seemed fragile, like a house of cards ready to fall. I was furious, hurt, and utterly lost. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew this wasn't just about the affair. It was about trust, something she had just shredded into pieces. The next day I couldn't sit still. My thoughts were racing. How long had this been going on? Was this just a one-time slip-up, or has she been lying to me for months? That question kept pounding in my head. I felt like a fool for not noticing the signs earlier, for ignoring the gut feeling that something was terribly wrong. I kept replaying the footage in my mind, trying to catch any detail I might have missed. Every time I did, it made my stomach tighten further. I decided I couldn't just sit around and stew. I needed to confront her, to get some truth out of her, no matter how bad it was. I told her I had a doctor's appointment that afternoon, but really, I just wanted her home so I could talk to her face to face. When she got back, her attitude was typical, bitchy, dismissive, and defensive. She had this way of rolling her eyes and crossing her arms like I was the problem for even bringing it up. So I sat her down in the living room, made sure I was calm, or as calm as I could be, and told her I knew everything. Her reaction was instant. She scoffed, called me crazy, said I was overreacting, and tried to brush it off like it was no big deal. "You're just paranoid, Mike," she snapped. "You always think I'm cheating, but I'm not. Jensen's just a friend. You're blowing things out of proportion. Maybe you're the one with the problem, not me." I lost it for a second. I told her I'd seen her sneaking out. I'd watched her get into Jensen's car, and I knew she was lying. That's when she got even more bitchy, saying I was insecure, jealous, and that I was ruining our marriage over nothing. She looked at me like I was some crazy husband who couldn't handle a little fun. Honestly, I'd never seen her so dismissive, so cold. It was like the woman I married had turned into this selfish, manipulative bitch who only cared about herself. That whole conversation was a mess. She kept denying, lying, throwing blame back at me. She said she'd never cheat, that Jensen was just a trusted friend, and that I was being paranoid because I was insecure. The anger in her voice and the venomous way she spat out her words made me realize how deeply she'd been lying to my face. She lied about her schedule, about her feelings, and apparently about her fidelity. The betrayal hit me hard, harder than I thought possible. I felt like I was drowning in a pit of disappointment and rage. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do something, anything, to make this all stop. But I just sat there staring at her, feeling the cold realization settle in. My wife was cheating on me, and I had no idea how long it had been going on. After that confrontation, I was a mess. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't sleep, and my mind kept circling back to that footage, to her lies, to Jensen's smug face in the videos. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sneaking out, the secret rendezvous, her fake smile as she lied to my face. The worst part was realizing I'd been blind, trusting her, thinking she was honest, believing in the life we built together. Now all I could feel was betrayal, anger, and this gnawing sense that I'd been played for a fool. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I needed proof, something concrete to hold onto if I was going to confront her again or take any action. I decided to dig a little deeper. The footage was a start, but I wanted more evidence, something undeniable. I spent the next few days watching her every move, following her, checking her phone, but I didn't find anything else incriminating beyond what I already knew. Still, I felt it in my bones. She was lying, hiding, and screwing around. One night I sat her down again, armed with everything I'd uncovered. This time I was colder, more deliberate. I told her I wasn't going to be played anymore, that I knew about Jensen and the affair. Her reaction was typical denial, accusations of me spying on her, and her bitchy attitude to boot. "You're crazy, Mike. You're just jealous because you're not satisfying me anymore," she snapped. That one hit hard. It was her way of turning it into my fault, making me feel guilty for catching her, but I wasn't falling for that. I told her I knew she'd been lying for months and I wanted the truth. She started crying then, which I didn't expect. But it wasn't the kind of genuine remorse you hope for. It was that fake, manipulative crying, like she was trying to guilt me into feeling bad for catching her. She said she didn't mean for it to get this far, that Jensen was just a distraction, that she loved me but needed something different, whatever that meant. She called Jensen her chiropractor, as if that made everything okay. She insisted she hadn't had sex with him, just some flirty conversations, but I wasn't buying it. I knew better. That moment was a turning point. I realized I was just wasting my energy trying to get her to admit the full truth. She wasn't going to. She was too good at lying, too good at hiding her real feelings behind that bitchy veneer. I felt humiliated, angry, and deeply hurt. I'd always thought I was the one giving, the one who loved her unconditionally, and now I saw how little that meant to her. The woman I married was a stranger, someone capable of betrayal and manipulation. I sat there, listening to her sob, feeling the cold realization settle that I had to decide whether I was going to keep throwing my heart into something that was already dead or walk away and start over. The pain was overwhelming. I knew I couldn't keep pretending this was just a mistake or a moment of weakness. It was a breach so deep, it changed everything. I got up, told her I needed space, and left the room. I didn't know what the hell was coming next, but I knew this wasn't just about finding out. This was about what I was willing to accept and what I was. In the days that followed, everything felt surreal. I was stuck in this fog of betrayal, trying to process how someone I trusted so completely could do something so ruthless. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sneaking out, Jensen's smug face, the way she lied so easily. It was like my entire world had crumbled overnight. I kept replaying that footage in my head, trying to find some logical explanation. Maybe it was just a mistake, maybe she was just vulnerable, maybe Jensen had manipulated her somehow. But deep down, I knew this was more than just a slip-up. This was full-blown adultery, and she had no intention of stopping. I decided I had to face her one more time, even if it was just to get some final answers. I couldn't keep going back and forth, living in this limbo of suspicion. So I called her at work, told her I wanted to meet that evening. When she got home, she looked different, defensive, like she was ready for a fight, but also like she knew she was cornered. Her bitchy attitude was even worse than before. She threw some snide comments my way, saying I was crazy and possessive, that she had the right to see whoever she wanted. That just made my blood boil. We sat down in the living room and I stared her down. I told her I knew about Jensen, that I'd seen the footage and I wasn't going to pretend anymore. Her face didn't change. She kept denying, saying it was just a fling, that Jensen meant nothing, that I was overreacting. When I pressed her, she finally admitted she'd been seeing him for months, but insisted that they never had sex, just messy flirtations, because of course that made everything okay. That was her go-to lie. We didn't do anything, even when I knew better. I asked her what she saw in Jensen, why she'd betray me like this. She scoffed, said I was boring, that Jensen gave her what I couldn't anymore, attention, excitement, something she claimed I'd been neglecting. But I saw through her bullshit. She was just using that as an excuse to justify her actions. Deep down, I knew she didn't care about us anymore. All she cared about was herself, her little secret affair, and her lying, bitchy attitude. I felt this surge of anger, a mix of humiliation, betrayal, and rage. I wanted to shake her, scream at her, make her see how much she had destroyed. But I held back. Instead, I told her I needed time to think, that I wasn't going to make any rash decisions. I just wanted her out of my life for a little while, to give myself space to breathe. She looked at me with that smirk, like she knew she had already won some twisted game. I realized then that I couldn't save this marriage, not after what I'd seen and how she'd lied. I'd been played for a fool long enough. I was done. I wanted to walk away, start healing, even if that meant a long, painful process. I never thought I'd be in a situation where a woman I loved so deeply would turn around and betray me so maliciously, but here we were. The choices I'd make next would define everything. The days after that conversation were a blur. I moved out of the house, partly because I couldn't stand being in the same space with her anymore, and partly because I needed clear boundaries. I found a nearby apartment and started sleeping there, but my mind just wouldn't shut off. Every moment was filled with her voice, her lies, Jensen's smug face. I couldn't escape the feeling that I'd been deeply duped, that the woman I loved had played me for months, maybe longer. I threw myself into figuring out what I wanted. Part of me wanted revenge, wanted her to hurt like I had, to feel the pain of that betrayal. But another part of me knew that revenge wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't erase the hurt, wouldn't bring back the trust she'd shattered. Still, I couldn't help but think about how I might make Jensen pay for what he'd done, how he'd taken advantage of my wife's vulnerabilities, and how he'd been so brazen about it, even in my own house. That thought kept burning inside me. I started gathering more evidence. I hired a private investigator just to confirm what I already knew, that Jensen was more than just her chiropractor. The investigator found out Jensen had been with her in his office late at night, that they'd gone on little trips together, and that they'd even taken intimate photos. That was the breaking point. I felt sick reading the report, knowing that the man I trusted to fix her back had been screwing around with my wife in ways I'd never even imagined. It was a victory of sorts, but a hollow one. I knew it was only going to get messier from here. I finally decided I had to confront her again, but this time with everything on the table. I called her and told her I wanted her to come over. She showed up with that bitchy smirk, convinced she could manipulate her way out of anything. Instead, I laid everything out, footage, reports, everything I'd uncovered. I saw her face flicker with panic, then anger. She tried to deny everything, call me a stalker, say I was crazy for invading her privacy. But I wasn't backing down anymore. I told her I knew about Jensen, about the trips, about the pictures, about everything. She exploded then, tearing into me, calling me an insecure, jealous idiot. Said I was possessive and pathetic for even caring. She berated me for accusing her of something she claimed she didn't do, but I was past that stage. I saw right through her act. I told her I'd had enough and that I wanted her gone, just out of my life. Her bitchy attitude only got worse. She spat in my face and told me I'd regret this, that she'd take everything I had, house, kids, money, that she'd make my life hell if I tried to ruin her. That moment was a turning point. I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I had to protect myself, emotionally and legally. I started contacting lawyers about divorce, thinking about how to protect my interests, how to make sure I kept custody of the kids. I was angry, yes, but also strangely relieved. I finally saw clearly what she was, an unfaithful, manipulative woman who had no regard for me or our family. I felt broken in a way I never had before, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I couldn't save what was already lost, and the only way forward was to cut my losses and start rebuilding my life from scratch. The betrayal had shattered me. But in that chaos, I learned one thing: trust is fragile, and sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who can hurt us the deepest. I'd been naive, thinking love could conquer everything. Now I saw that love also requires boundaries, honesty, and respect, things she had so willingly thrown aside. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I won't let her or Jensen ruin me. Not anymore. Not without a fight. In the aftermath of everything, I've been trying to piece my life back together. It's not easy, trusting again, feeling safe again after all that betrayal. But I've learned a lot through this nightmare. One thing I realize is that I should have trusted my instincts from the beginning. That gut feeling I ignored. It was right all along. I also learned that some people are just fundamentally selfish, will lie, cheat, manipulate, and hurt others without a second thought if it benefits them. I've also come to see how destructive betrayal can be, not just for the betrayed, but for everyone involved. My kids, especially. I know they're young, but I worry about the impact this will have on them. I've decided to stay strong for their sake, to be there for them no matter what. I want to be the father who shows them what integrity and honesty look like, even if I'm hurting inside. I want to teach them that betrayal is the end of the world, how to pick yourself up and rebuild after you've been knocked down. For myself, I'm trying to focus on healing. Therapy has helped a lot, talking through everything, understanding that I was not at fault for her choices. It's tempting to blame myself, but I know deep down it was her own moral failure. I've also started working out, going for long walks, and reconnecting with old friends, just to rebuild my confidence. The pain still lingers, but it's less sharp now. I'm learning to accept that some things are beyond my control and that I can't change her, only myself. What I want to say to anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation is, trust your instincts, don't ignore the warning signs, and never accept betrayal as just a mistake. You deserve honesty and respect, nothing less. And if you find yourself betrayed, don't be afraid to walk away, to protect yourself and your future. It's hard, but sometimes the only way forward is to let go of what's broken and start fresh. Looking back, I realize I've become stronger because of this. I've learned that real love isn't about sacrifice or putting up with lies. It's about mutual respect, trust, and honesty. If those things are missing, then everything else is just a house built on sand. I'm still healing, still rebuilding, but I have hope. Hope that someday I'll find someone who values me the way I deserve. Until then, I'll keep moving forward, knowing I've survived something ugly and I've come out the other side. That's what matters.